today, father of a 21-year-old who is in trouble because we were supposed to celebrate Father's Day next weekend. So her mother and her thought they were slick, and so they surprised me today. Time got away from me because I had intended to include some of her baby pictures in the slide presentation. And I'm really sad that time got away because I really wanted to embarrass her. But I stand here as someone who has experience, maybe even someone in a position of authority, but certainly not as someone who's always gotten it right when it comes to fatherhood. First lessons we teach our children are not through the words that we speak, but by the way that we live our lives. I've always admired men that can talk to you about anything and provide sage advice. I love sitting at the feet of my elders and hearing their wisdom, but raising children, it isn't always having a captive audience of little people who hang on to your every word. The first lessons children learn from us come through how we treat them and how they see us treat others. Their first lessons come from them watching us and seeing whether we are compassionate, whether as men that we're good to their mothers, are we good to other people? Do we show respect to others? Do they see us pray? Is every other word a curse word, or do we say something when we get in an argument with somebody else? Are we trying to solve the issue, or are we just trying to win the fight? James Baldwin said that children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them. In his letter to Titus, Paul tells him, in everything, set them an example by doing what is good. It's not enough to tell your children to be good if they never see you doing good. And how do you model this behavior for them? How you model dealing with adversity? How you model not getting a big head when things are going well and not falling apart when things are going into a pit of despair and everything around you is not good? How you make it through what Rudyard Kipling wrote in If, how you keep your head up when all around you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. How you make it through life tells your children what they need to know so that they can make it through too. What would you tell them? The rich man woke up in hell. But think about if you could just tell your children something right now. If you could tell your children that you listened to somebody else and what you learned from them. If you could tell your children, just think, if you could tell your children, and Dr. Button's not here, but if you could tell your children just to eat better and to exercise so that they don't grow up taking the same number of pills that you take today. What would you tell them? One of the things you have to tell them is to have courage. It takes courage to make it in this world because this world is so demanding of you. This world is so demanding of these bodies. This world can be so demanding, expecting us at our desks every day, at our jobs every day. We live in this world that loves our rhythm but doesn't want to acknowledge our blues. It takes courage to pursue your dreams. It takes courage to go after what you want when everybody around you is telling you that you can't have that, you can't be that, you can't achieve that. Our children have to have courage. For fathers, it takes courage to make sacrifices so that your family will have. You have to go without sometimes so that they can have. It takes courage when you don't see a way out. The phrases, the words, "do not fear" and "fear not" appear in the Bible over 100 times. He knew we would be afraid, but our trust has to be in him. Our courage must be rooted in knowing that if he is for you, nothing can be against you. Our courage must be rooted in knowing that no weapon formed against us shall prosper, but know that the weapons are going to form. Story is told that long ago there was a French naval captain, and they're in the midst of war, and he sees an enemy ship approaching, and he turns to his men and he says, "Rally, rally men, it is time to fight." He turns to his first mate and he tells him, "Bring me my red shirt." And they go on and they fight a tough battle, but they win. Everyone is celebrating, and the first mate leans in and says, "Sir, why did you ask for your red shirt?" Captain says, "Well, because if I got hurt, if I got injured, if I was bleeding, I didn't want the men to be able to tell. I didn't want them to lose heart. I wanted them to still fight on." First mate taps the captain on the shoulder, says, "Captain, turn around." Captain turns around and there's a whole armada of enemy ships approaching, and he yells to the men, rally men, fight. It's time to fight." Turns to the first mate and yells at him, "Bring me my yellow pants." You'll catch that on the way home. Father's Day, I get some dad jokes, right? But when you're teaching them courage, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is being afraid, but doing the task that needs to be done anyway. Whether the challenges are epic or the challenges of life, we have to prepare our children to be able to face their challenges even when it's hard. Someone once said, "Speak up even if your voice starts to crack." Face your enemy head on, and with God, know that you are not alone. One of the things you have to realize is that being a father is not for the faint of heart. Too often we tell our sons in particular that they have to be tough. We hear real men are tough. Real men don't cry. Well, I have two words. Jesus wept. We have to stop focusing on teaching them to be tough and teach them to be resilient. There's a lot of tough kids in the streets shooting at each other every night. And I know in some contexts you have to be able to defend yourself. We don't want our children to be defenseless, but if the only tools that we put in their tool belts is how to fight and how to cuss somebody out, we've ill-equipped them. We have to give our children the tools to get up after being knocked down. Jesus told the disciples as he was preparing for the cross, he says, I tell you these things that you might have peace, because in the world there will be tribulation. If we spend our time protecting our children from everything, they don't get the skills to know how to bounce back. I remember when Mallory was born, she weighed less than 4 pounds. I could almost hold her in one hand. And it was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. Being tough wasn't enough. I was scared. But there was little to nothing that I could do. But I had to stay. I couldn't turn and run. I couldn't walk away. See, having a hot head and being tough doesn't get you through situations like that. Those things that happen in real life. Having a hot head will get you into more trouble than it'll get you out of. 2013, I was laid off from my job and I didn't have time to be tough. I had to pray. I had to pray for connections. I had to pray for information. I had to pray to make it through. I had a choice to make. I could curl up in the corner in a ball and cry my eyes out and cry, woe is me. I could shirk my responsibilities and just leave. Or I could stand like a man and recognize that God would bring me through it. When I had to pray for connections, I'll be honest, God blessed me. I left one job on Friday and started a new job on Monday. That was God. But I'm also aware that God puts angels in your path, because the job that I walked into was through a connection that Mallory's mother had made for me. It wasn't me. It was God and the angels that he puts in our paths. It's one thing to talk about faith, and it's one thing to read the stories of faith when we pick up our Bible, but it's another thing when your back is against the wall and you really have to have faith. It takes courage. It takes courage to leave a bad situation. It takes resilience to know that you will recover. Too many times we tell our children that they're cute. We tell them how wonderful they are. And trust me, they need to hear those things. But they need to hear some real lessons too. Some of you will go out to eat today. Pay attention to the server and ask them if they come up to you when the bill is ready and they say, will that be cash, check, or cute? We have to teach our children some real lessons. They have to learn that they're not better than anyone else. But they also have to know that they're too good to be mistreated. If you woke up, what in hell, what would you tell them? What would you want them to know? Finally, everything is all for naught if they do not have faith. If they don't have faith, if they don't have a relationship with God, no amount of success will matter if they don't make it into heaven. The story is called The Rich Man and Lazarus. We don't even know the rich man's name. He may have been famous in his time. He may have been well known then, but all that notoriety, all that fortune, all that fame, and he woke up in hell. It's Lazarus who we know. Reminded of Job, the Bible tells us that it was his custom to pray for his children and make burnt offerings on their behalf because they may have sinned. A father's role is providing for his children, but it's also praying for his children. I'm reminded of the father in the story of the prodigal son. When his son returned, he knew where his son had been. He knew what his son had done, but he didn't lecture him, and there were no I told you so's. He didn't roll his eyes at him, and he didn't shake his fist at him, and he didn't, tell him, I told you not to carry yoke down there in the first place. he opened his arms and he welcomed him. He prepared a feast for him. He gave him his best ring. That's what a father does. But that story tells us that that's what our Father in heaven does for us. He welcomes us back. He knows we're going to sin. He knows we're going to mess up. But he welcomes us with open arms. It's what he does for us every day. And on this Father's Day, it doesn't matter what mistakes you made. You may have grown up without a father. You may not have been the best father, but he's standing with his arms wide open to bring you home and to show you a more excellent way. What would you tell them? Tell them you love them because they need to know it. They need to hear it. They need to feel it. Tell them that you want the best for them. And show them how so that they can achieve it. I get up and go to work every day, and through COVID, all I do is walk from one floor downstairs to the next floor. But I had a father that walked to the post office through the snow. I saw what it meant to sacrifice and to provide. Our children don't just learn from what we tell them, they learn from what they see us do. If you want the best for them, show them how to get it done. And let it begin with God.